Hello, welcome to the Intimate Hour. Tonight's story is not just a tale, it's a confession, a truth disguised as fiction, whispered behind the thick walls of an elite university. It's about a woman who wore intelligence like silk and secrets like lace. She was a college professor, but she had a whole different game going on. This story will stir your mind, your body, and something deeper. What you're about to hear isn't just sensual, it's dark, twisted, dangerous, and real. Her name was Dr. Evelyn Hart, 38, tenured professor of psychology at Briarwood University, known for her sharp intellect, hypnotic lectures, and the type of red lipstick that left minds and fantasies spinning long after her 8 a.m. class. Tall, with deep brown skin that glowed like polished bronze under the lecture hall lights, Evelyn wore tight pencil skirts and silk blouses like armor. Her body was a poem of subtle curves and deliberate movement. Students said she looked like a goddess out of a dream, one you weren't sure you should have. She lived alone in a townhouse on the edge of the historic district, just close enough to walk to campus but far enough for discretion. Her colleagues respected her. Her students adored her. But no one really knew her. And that was exactly how she wanted it. What they didn't know, what no one knew, was that Evelyn Hart had a game of her own behind those lecture notes and clinical studies. Her nights weren't spent reading research or grading papers. No. Evelyn's nights were soaked in shadows, secrets, and silk. It started with Liam, a student in her upper-level psychology seminar. 22 football scholarship, the kind of jawline sculpted by youth and discipline. He was smart, not top of the class but smart enough to be dangerous. He stayed after class one too many times, asked questions about Freud that had nothing to do with exams, his eyes drifting over her neckline with a mix of curiosity and something darker. She saw it. She always saw it. One afternoon, he lingered again, pretending to ask about her recent lecture on power dynamics in relationships. Evelyn leaned against the desk, arms crossed under her chest, knowing the curve it created would throw him off. "You know," she said, her voice like a velvet knife, "power doesn't always look like control. Sometimes it looks like surrender." He blinked, trying to process if that was a flirtation or a test. She loved that moment, the second before someone decided which version of her they were seeing. He smiled nervously. "You mean like submission?" She tilted her head. "Maybe. Or maybe domination. Depends on who's playing the game." That night she waited. And as expected, at exactly 10:14 p.m., her encrypted inbox lit up with a message from Liam, sent from a private email address. Subject line: "Tell me more about the game." Evelyn had rules. Always. Her guests, as she called them, had to sign NDAs before they even knew where they were going. They surrendered phones. They followed instructions. No names. No questions. Her townhouse transformed after dark. The second floor a space wrapped in velvet ropes, mirrors, custom leather furnishings, and silence. She had created a sanctuary where she controlled every breath, every sigh, every delicious cry. But it wasn't just about sex. That's what made Evelyn different. This wasn't lust for its own sake. It was a study. She had a folder hidden behind a false wall in her office labeled Voluntary Behavior Under Covert Authority. A live case series. She was testing something. Pushing the human psyche to its edge and then just a little past it. Her experiment wasn't about pain. It was about desire and fear, two emotions wired so close together in the human brain that, when teased right, they became indistinguishable. She recorded everything. With permission. With precision. She had dozens of recordings cataloged only by voice tone and heartbeat rhythm. Her participants, mostly men, sometimes women, believed they were part of a secret society. But really they were her lab rats. Until Noah happened. Noah wasn't a student. He was a visiting professor. Early 40s, rugged, former military intelligence turned academic, hired for a single semester to teach criminology. She met him at a faculty mixer, and unlike the others, he didn't flirt. Didn't fawn. He studied her. That alone made him irresistible. He asked her to dinner, casually, after one of her guest lectures. She said yes, partly curious, partly reckless. Over drinks he said, "You've got secrets, Dr. Hart. The kind that breathe under your skin." She laughed, too loudly, and he didn't blink. She felt heat crawl up her neck. Not because of his words, but because for the first time in a long time she felt studied. Undone. She tested him. That night, she sent him a riddle in an envelope slipped under his office door. "Power isn't given. It's taken. If you want to play, find me where the masks live." He found her. At 1:12 a.m., he knocked on the back door of her townhouse. No questions. Just a look. She let him in. He didn't flinch when he saw the restraints. Or the chains. He walked in like he already knew. And when she tried to dominate him, blindfold, collar, whispers at his throat, he flipped her. Fast, gentle but firm. And whispered, "You're not the only one who knows how to control people." She gasped. Something deep in her cracked. Noah became an addiction. He didn't just play her game. He rewrote it. They had a private contract even deeper than the one she gave her guests. He touched her like she was both sacred and scandalous. He read her journal when she was asleep. And when she confronted him, furious, exposed, he only smiled and said, "You write better when you think no one's watching." She should have ended it. But she didn't. Because for the first time, someone made her feel known. But not all secrets stay sweet. Someone had slipped a flash drive into her campus mailbox. No return address. When she opened it, her own footage played back at her. Grainy zoomed in. Someone had been recording her sessions. Her heart stopped. The angle wasn't from her system. It was outside. She thought it might be Liam. Or a jealous former guest. But a chill ran through her when she realized Noah had full access. He could have planted anything, known everything. She stormed to his office and found it empty. His desk cleared. No record of employment in the system. It was like he'd never existed. And then she received the second envelope. This one in red wax, her initials on the seal. Inside, a single key and a note. "You're not the only one studying behavior. Ready for the final game?" Her hands trembled. Fear bloomed in her chest, but deeper still, underneath it, something dark and undeniable, arousal. She thought she had been the hunter. But someone had just flipped the board. Evelyn sat at the edge of her bed, the flash drive on the nightstand, the mysterious brass key held tight in her palm. She hadn't slept. Her mind ran in loops, playing and replaying every detail of the footage she'd found. The angle wasn't from her own surveillance system. It was from outside the house. Someone had been watching her watch them. Watching her control, command, record. It wasn't a break-in. It was infiltration. And then there was Noah. He had walked into her world like a shadow with a name. She thought he was just another curiosity, a lover with a past, maybe a few kinks, something she could explore and shelve away like the rest. But the man had flipped her reality inside out. His disappearance wasn't the kind that came from embarrassment or fear. It was strategic. It was deliberate. And the note had said, "You're not the only one studying behavior. Ready for the final game?" Evelyn had always trusted her instincts. They whispered things other people couldn't hear. They kept her 2 steps ahead. But now her instincts were muddied by lust, by intrigue, by something far more dangerous. The thrill of being hunted. The key was old-fashioned, its teeth sharp, its handle worn smooth from time. She hadn't recognized the red wax seal at first. But once she held the envelope to the light, she saw the faint watermark. A ghost house. It was more myth than fact on campus. A private society supposedly rooted in centuries-old rituals and secret gatherings. Some said it was a sex club for the elite. Others whispered darker rumors, experiments, power exchange, invitations that were less like offers and more like commands. No one Evelyn knew had ever seen it. No one ever admitted to being a member. But someone had invited her. By midnight, she stood in front of a narrow stone building just off Riverstone Lane. No sign. No lights. Just a carved lion's head above a black steel door. Her breath formed soft clouds in the night air, but her body ran warm. She was dressed in a long black coat over nothing but a silk slip, bare beneath it, vulnerable and deliberate. The door unlocked when she inserted the key. A quiet click echoed through the darkness, and when she stepped inside, the air shifted. It smelled of candle wax and expensive leather. Velvet lined the hallway walls, and the lighting was low and warm, a golden glow that flickered like firelight. Evelyn moved slowly, each step deliberate, heels muffled against the thick carpet. A woman in a black lace mask met her at the end of the corridor. She said nothing, only extended a gloved hand. Evelyn placed the key into it, and the woman turned, leading her through a heavy curtain and down a curved staircase. What lay beneath was a dream made flesh, or maybe a nightmare with the skin of desire. The room opened into a chamber of decadence. Candles glowed from wrought iron sconces. Plush chairs circled the central stage. People moved in pairs, some dressed in full-body latex, others completely nude save for collars and chains. Every breath was heavy with sex and tension and mystery. No one spoke above a whisper. Evelyn passed a man kneeling before a tall woman in stilettos, his tongue pressed to the toe of her boot. A young woman lay bound in rope, hanging from a suspension frame, her thighs glistening. A pair of masked figures embraced in a darkened alcove, movements slow and rhythmic, primal and worshipful. And then, she saw him. Noah. Sitting at the far end of the room, legs spread, forearms resting casually on his thighs. No mask. Just that knowing smirk and eyes that pierced through shadow like blades. He was dressed in a black jacket over his bare chest, the edge of a tattoo visible above his collarbone. He looked like he belonged to this place. Like he owned it. She walked to him without hesitation. The room seemed to blur around them. You left the key, she said softly. You accepted the invitation, he replied. Where the hell have you been? Exactly where you are now. She didn't flinch. This some twisted test? He stood slowly, taller than she remembered. No test, just the next phase. He gestured toward a smaller suite off to the side, shielded by thick velvet drapes. Inside, mirrors on all four walls, a low bed with dark gray sheets, an antique wardrobe, a single candle burning beside a bowl of black roses. She followed him in. He closed the door, locked it, and turned to face her. I know what you are, Evelyn. I've read your work, watched your footage, studied your subjects. You're not just a professor. You're a puppeteer. And it's beautiful. Her heart hammered in her chest. So what is this, Noah? Some sting operation? Are you here to expose me? No, he said, walking toward her. I'm here to complete you. And then he touched her. One hand at the nape of her neck, the other sliding beneath her coat. Her breath hitched as he opened it, revealing the silk slip beneath. She wasn't wearing panties. She had planned for power. Instead, she felt undone. He pressed her gently against the mirrored wall, his mouth at her throat, his fingers tracing the curve of her spine. You've controlled every man who walked into your home, he whispered. But you've never let anyone inside you. She tried to scoff. But when he slid 2 fingers between her thighs, slick and ready, she whimpered instead. He didn't just take her. He read her. Every breath, every shift, every moan. He responded like he knew her before she knew herself. He turned her, bent her over the edge of the bed, and slid into her with a slow, relentless thrust that made her cry out. She caught sight of herself in the mirror, eyes wide, mouth open, back arched. She looked like one of her subjects. Noah moved with control, never rushing, each stroke purposeful. He whispered in her ear, fed her lines like commands, like mantras. Tell me who you are now. She choked out, I'm yours. He gripped her hair and pulled just enough to make her spine curve further. Louder. I'm yours, she moaned. Tonight. I'm yours. He made her say it again. And again. Until the words melted into moans. Until her legs trembled. Until she came so hard she thought she might black out. And still he didn't stop. Not until she shattered again, the echo of her cries tangled with the sound of skin meeting skin. They collapsed together in the aftermath, her head on his chest, breath ragged. For a while neither of them spoke. Just the sound of candlelight flickering and heartbeats sinking in silence. Then Noah tilted her chin toward him. You were never the villain, Evelyn. You were the story. She blinked, dazed. He continued, I was sent to investigate you. A private group found out about your research. They didn't want you exposed. They wanted to recruit you. They sent me to make sure you were the real thing. And what am I now? She whispered. His lips brushed hers. You're mine. Evelyn didn't sleep the rest of the night. After Noah whispered that final truth, that she had been recruited, not hunted, something inside her fractured and rearranged itself. Her entire world, built carefully over the years in shadows and silence, had just shifted on its axis. She lay naked against his chest, her body sore in the most delicious way, her mind reeling. For once, she wasn't thinking in hypotheses or behavior patterns. She wasn't the one holding the clipboard or pulling the strings. She was just in it, raw, breathless, plain. But by morning, the vulnerability started to itch. She slipped out of the bed quietly and stood before the mirror. Her reflection stared back, tousled hair, flushed skin, the faint red imprint of where Noah's hand had gripped her hip. She looked like someone else. She looked owned. And it both terrified and thrilled her. Noah stirred behind her, watching her in silence. His eyes were softer now, the edge of predator still there, but tempered with something else. Maybe affection. Maybe possession. Maybe something neither of them were ready to name. You're leaving? He asked, voice low. Thinking, she said. Processing. You don't have to run. She turned. That's the first lie you've told me. He smiled faintly. Fair. But I'm not asking you to disappear into my world, Evelyn. I'm asking you to let me inside yours. I let you inside me already, she replied dryly, reaching for her coat. That's not what I meant, and you know it. She paused. The room was still thick with the scent of sex, sweat, and candle smoke. Her body still tingled from the night before. But her mind was sharpening again, already assembling its defenses. I need to think, she said again, pulling her coat on. Don't follow me. You didn't? She didn't return home immediately. Instead, she drove. No destination, just streets, just motion. Her hands gripped the steering wheel like it was the last piece of control she had. She tried to replay every moment, every word Noah had said. He had been sent to investigate her, yes, but by who? A private group? A secret society? A recruitment? Was he telling the truth, or was this just another elaborate game? The only truth she could trust right now was what she had felt when he was inside her. Not just his body, but his focus, his presence, the terrifying intimacy of being seen. He hadn't just read her like the others. He'd memorized her. And somewhere deep down, it made her want more. But trust had a price. By afternoon, she was back at her townhouse, pacing. She opened the safe behind the mirror in her bedroom and pulled out the real files. The hard copies, handwritten notes she never scanned, never typed. Her voluntary behavior under covert authority series. Dozens of sessions. Names. Details. The record of everything. There was power in those pages. Proof of her work. But also the weight of risk. She thought about burning it all. Instead, she pulled out one file. Subject R3. Male, 22, upperclassman, consent level 3, session type. Emotional manipulation plus sexual reward exchange. Was Liam. The first who had willingly let her dominate, document, devour. The one who had started it all. But looking at his file now, something felt different. She no longer saw him as a project. She saw him as a pawn. And suddenly she hated herself a little. That night her phone buzzed. Unknown number. The board is waiting for your decision. 24 hours. Then the door closes. She stared at it. The board? The ones behind Noah? The ones who had been watching her in secret, judging her, grooming her for something bigger? She didn't like being boxed in. But curiosity had always been her greatest flaw. At exactly midnight, she returned to Auguste's house. Noah was waiting. Not in the lounge, not in the playroom, but upstairs. A suite she'd never seen before. He stood in front of a long table, dressed in black again, his expression unreadable. Behind him were three other figures. Masked, dressed formally like royalty who didn't care for rules. Evelyn walked in without speaking. The air felt heavier here. More clinical. Less sex, more strategy. One of the masked figures stepped forward. A woman by her voice. Dr. Hart, she said smoothly. We've been watching your work for quite some time. You blur lines most people fear to approach. You understand submission as power. Pleasure as control. That's what we're looking for. Evelyn narrowed her eyes. Looking for what exactly? A facilitator. A controller. Someone who can oversee psychological sessions for high-tier clients. Not sexual necessarily, but intimate, dangerous, real. And if I say no? The woman tilted her head. You walk out. We wipe every trace. You return to your lectures. Your secrets stay safe. But the game ends there. And if I say yes? You become one of us, fully. You get access to a new level of power. Clients, funding, protection. You'll never be hunted again. Evelyn's gaze shifted to Noah. He hadn't moved. She took a breath. What's his role in all this? The woman replied, he's one of our watchers. Sent to evaluate, seduce if necessary, and report back. So you used me, Evelyn said, eyes narrowing at Noah. But Noah stepped forward then, his voice quiet. I was supposed to report you, but I didn't. I protected you. Because I saw something none of them did. You don't just manipulate people, Evelyn. You heal them. Even if you don't know it yet. She hated that she felt her throat tighten. The woman behind the mask extended her hand. Your decision, Professor. Evelyn stepped closer. She didn't shake the woman's hand. She simply asked, do I still get to control the sessions? Design my own approach. You'll have full creative reign. And my methods? My rules? As long as the subjects consent. Evelyn paused. Then she said three words that surprised even herself. Then I'm in. Noah exhaled slowly, relief flickering in his eyes. The woman nodded. You begin training next week. After the masked trio left the room, Evelyn and Noah were alone again. She turned to him. You manipulated me better than anyone I've ever met. I didn't lie, he said. I just followed the map you left wide open. She smirked, crossing the room slowly until her body was flush with his. And now what happens? He reached for her waist, pulled her in. Now we make new rules. Together. She let him kiss her again, and this time it wasn't power play or performance. It was something far more terrifying, something real. And for the first time in her life, Evelyn Hart didn't need to be in control. Evelyn stood before the one-way mirror in a silent room cloaked in soft shadows and velvet hush, watching the man on the other side of the glass. He was seated, blindfolded, hands loosely tied behind his back with red silk, not for restraint but for ritual. A slow breath left her lips, and her heart remained steady, composed, almost mechanical. But the moment her eyes traced over the curve of Noah's jaw, the part of his chest where she'd left faint scratches the night before, her control faltered, only for a second. This was the final test. He had volunteered without question when the board had requested a proof of discipline session. A way to validate Evelyn's ability to remain in command even when the subject was someone intimately close. The masked figures behind her said nothing, their presence heavy in the darkened room. They wanted confirmation, a final assurance that she could sever the human from the handler. But what they failed to realize was that Evelyn had never needed to sever anything. She didn't believe in walls between control and emotion. She believed in weaving them together until the lines were indistinguishable. She stepped into the chamber. Noah's head tilted slightly. His senses were razor sharp, even blindfolded, and he could smell her, feel her nearness in the shift of air. He remained quiet, the perfect subject. She didn't speak right away. Instead, she circled him slowly, letting the silence stretch. She touched the base of his neck, the edge of his shoulder, and then let her nails drag across his skin with just enough pressure to leave a trail of heat. He sucked in a breath but said nothing. "You trust me," she said, voice low and steady. "Yes," he replied. "Even if I break you?" "Yes." "Even if I never put you back together?" Pause. "You always do." She stopped in front of him, sliding a single fingertip under the blindfold. "Good. Because today I'm not your lover. I'm not even Evelyn." She removed the blindfold. His pupils dilated. "I am your handler. And I own every inch of your mind." Noah blinked, already slipping into the headspace they had practiced only a few times before. One where he was utterly hers, no performance, no pride, just submission cloaked in the intimacy of truth. For the next 35 minutes, Evelyn worked him like a violin, slow, precise, with every stroke calibrated to bend him to the edge of his own limits. She spoke into his ear in tones that made his breath hitch, made his fingers clench behind him. Her commands weren't cruel, they were seductive, surgical. He responded with moans that melted into whispered confessions, about his fear of being vulnerable, his past failures, the guilt he carried from childhood. And Evelyn, poised in control, offered him none of the soft comfort she gave in private. She didn't touch him to soothe. She didn't kiss to reassure. She made him sit in the discomfort, forced him to unravel with dignity. By the time he trembled from the pressure building inside him, arousal, vulnerability, release, Evelyn whispered the final command, "Now come." For me. For no other reason than I say so. And he did. Without being touched. Without shame. Completely hers. She didn't even need to turn around to know the board had seen enough. Later that night, the door to her private suite creaked open, and Noah stepped inside, quiet, barefooted, his body still humming from what she'd done to him hours ago. He hadn't said a word since the session ended. The board had granted her full status, handed her the reins without condition. There was no longer a question about her loyalty or capacity. She was in. Untouchable. Empowered. But none of that mattered now. Not to her. She just wanted to know that he was still hers. The man, not the subject. Noah stood in front of her and didn't speak for a moment. Then he said, "I've never come that hard in my life." Evelyn cracked a smile, slow and sly. "You're welcome. But also," he stepped forward, "you scared me. A little. How far you took me. You asked me to," she said. "I know." He hesitated. "And I liked it." She tilted her head. "Then what's the problem?" He leaned in, brushing his lips over her neck. "The problem is, now I need you to break me again." Her eyes darkened. "Tonight." "No," he whispered. "Tonight I need you to hold me." So she did. They lay together on the velvet chaise, his head against her chest, her fingers slowly stroking his hair. There were no restraints, no mirrors, no hidden microphones. Just breath and closeness and skin. "You're not afraid of me anymore," she murmured. "I never was," he replied. "I was afraid for you. That you'd lose yourself in the control. That you'd stop letting anyone touch you, really touch you." She thought about that. "Sometimes," she said quietly, "I still want to run. Still think about walking away from all this, burning it down. And you could, he said. But you won't. Why? Because you were born for this. But also, he looked up at her, because I won't let you be alone anymore. There it was, the thing no session, no protocol, no anonymous masked board could ever give her. Not power, not prestige, but presence. Love not as a weakness but as a raw, living force. In the weeks that followed, Evelyn opened her own chamber inside the Auguste compound. A space unlike any other. Warm lighting, a sound system tuned to the rhythm of the heartbeat, walls painted in deep amber. She called it the reflection room. It wasn't about sex. Not directly. It was about undoing. Breaking down what people thought they were, stripping away performance and self-hate until the real version emerged, bare, tender, human. She trained others. A new class of handlers. Men and women she chose herself, not for their domination, but for their empathy. She made them learn from failure, from desire, from guilt. She made them feel before they could ever touch a client. And once, during a training session, she used Noah as the subject. Fully clothed, fully conscious, and unflinchingly vulnerable. He let a room full of future handlers witness the way his body reacted to her voice, the way his past unraveled under her questions, the way he softened into surrender. When it was over, Evelyn dismissed the trainees and walked up to him. You didn't have to go that far. He looked at her with nothing but love. You did it for me. Now I do it for you. And later that night, when they were alone again in her quarters, he said something he hadn't said before. Marry me. She looked at him for a long moment, no reaction on her face. Then, say it again. Marry me. This time her lips curled upward. Only if you promise never to stop disobeying me in small, infuriating ways. I promise nothing, he said, pushing her onto the bed. Except this, every time you fall apart, I'll be there to hold the pieces. They didn't get married in public. There were no rings, no vows before friends. They made their own ceremony, one candle at night where Evelyn knelt, not as a dominant but as a woman. Noah kissed her bare shoulders and whispered promises into her skin. And together they built something neither had expected. A love shaped in the dark, tested in fire, and sealed in silence. A love that began as a game and ended in everything.